welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And today we are going to be talking about a murder case that went cold for over 40 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this, so you're going to react in real time with me. Well, kind of not really. It's pre-recorded. But before we get too deep into anything, just a reminder, you can find us at all of our social medias, which are TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram. The handle for all four is at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S. We would very much appreciate a like and subscribe.
Yes.
I didn't breathe right on that one.
I was going to say it sounded great, though.
Oh, thank you. I was fighting for my life on the last part.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
All right. So this case is the case of Eve, and I apologize if I pronounce her last name wrong, Wilkowitz. 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 Wilkowitz.
Wilkowitz.
All right. So this case is that of Eve Wilkowitz and takes place in March of 1980 in New York. So something really cool about this case is I was actually able to track down some of the original newspapers from when she went missing. So I'm mainly using those for references. They were from Newsday, so they transferred all these old newspapers to Newsday. And my other sources mostly came from abc7ny.com and NBC News.
That's cool that you found the original newspapers.
I know, because I wasn't getting a lot of details, and all of a sudden I clicked on something, and it was the original newspapers.
That's pretty cool.
It was really cool. I had fun. Obviously, tragic what happened, but super, super cool that we were able to track this down. Do you want to say trigger warning for sexual assault? I do not go into any sort of details, but we do talk about it a little bit. So there's your trigger warning. But so Eve was born on April 17th of 1956 in Brooklyn, New York. She had one sister named Irene, and she was 3 years younger. She grew up in Oakdale, and when she turned 17, Eve's mom actually passed away from cancer. And shortly after, Eve decided to move out and move to Bayfield.
Also in New York?
Also in New York.
Okay.
I know there's a Bayfield, Wisconsin, but
Well, I was just like, I don't know my city names on the East Coast very well besides the big ones that everyone knows. So I'm like,
Yep. So we're still in New York here. So she moved to an apartment with her friend, Robert Gorgon, who was a year older than her, and they were roommates for 2 years. No romantic anything that I found between them, just two friends living together.
See, my brain has been ruined by the internet for various reasons, but did anyone else think of the old Vine? And they were roommates. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember that one.
I can't be alone in this. It was just a guy sitting on the steps, probably in New York, and a girl walks by on the phone and like obviously spilling the tea, and she goes, and they were roommates.
Oh.
It just became a thing.
Huh. The things that became a thing on Vine.
A lot of weird things.
A lot. That was just a weird app.
I enjoyed it.
A lot of people did. It was short-lived. But anywho, in February of 1980, Eve met a young writer named Jack Dempsey, and they began dating. Eve, age 20, worked as a secretary at the Macmillan Publishing Co. and commuted by taking the train. Eve had told Robert Gorgon, age 21, her roommate, that she was scared about men following her home from the railroad station. Eve didn't just express her concern once. She had stated several times that men were following her home during her 10-minute walk down dark and empty streets from the railroad station. She used the railroad station to commute to her job in Manhattan. She was worried. Robert stated, quote, "There was one guy who kept asking her out, and she said she wasn't interested, but he followed her a couple of times. There was another time, also a couple of weeks ago, she got home about 2 a.m. when another guy followed her home. She was really scared." End quote.
And sorry, what did you say she was doing for work? Not that it matters, but like...
So she's a secretary at a publishing company.
That would explain the late hours.
Yes and no. It sounds like the late hours, which we'll get into in a little bit, is her hanging out with Jack, her boyfriend, and then taking the last ride back home, the last train back home.
Okay. I am not putting judgment on Jack. That being said, when you are hanging out as a couple,
I know what you're about to say.
the general rule of thumb is, as a safety precaution, you usually will hang out at the girl's house and the guy will walk home, or the guy will make sure the girl gets home safe, not just to the station safe.
We'll get to it. So Robert also stated that Eve walked home from the station because it was just as quick as driving. On Friday, March 21st of 1980, Eve went to work, then left and went to a Manhattan restaurant and dined with her boyfriend Jack. They went back to his place, and she told him that if she fell asleep, wake her up so she can make the last train that leaves at 12:35 a.m. So she did fall asleep, and Jack woke her up and took her to this train station. He offered to go with her, but she said no. She refused, and she said that she would be fine. So Jack, it sounded like Jack had been trying to, like, I can go with you. It's really late. You shouldn't be going by yourself. And she just kept saying, no, I'm fine. It's fine. Nothing's happened before. Yeah. But things have happened before.
Things have happened before.
You getting followed? That's not just a thing.
No. And, I'm also thinking back to my college days with my husband now. He was my boyfriend then. When we lived on campus freshman year, he would come to my place, and the few times that I was over at his, he always walked me back. And we were on a pretty safe campus, but we're still in the cities. But there was one night where I was like, Johnny, don't worry about it. I got it. And he goes, I know you do. This is for me. Please let me walk with you, or I'll just hang back, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason was that they weren't at her place. Obviously, my assumption is that his place was just him, and she had a roommate.
Yeah.
That is my assumption.
I totally get it. And again, I'm not shaming. I'm just saying, for anyone listening, just know this is not a sexism or a gender thing. It is the reality of
the world we live in.
The world we live in is that women are more likely to be victims of crimes when they are walking alone, especially at later hours. And so therefore just
in areas that aren't populated
or even are populated, and who knows what's going on. So just kind of as like a secondary layer of, if you're a guy and you're with a girl, like,
just be mindful.
I mean, it's a little bit better now because, you can like FaceTime people.
Yeah.
You can call them, text them, like there's tracking. So it's like,
yeah. So this is the 1980s where things aren't like, safety precautions aren't like what they are today. It's not like you don't have the when you're out at night buddy system type deal. Like,
you're right. The reason we have those today is because of the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Actually, why did we stop? Because we totally did that in the 1910s and 20s and 30s. The hat pin stories?
No.
Oh, we'll talk about that maybe more in depth on an episode of like women's history. But essentially, women would wear pins inside of their hats that were basically self-defense knives.
Oh.
And so if men were getting too handsy, you would stab them.
You always have a weapon on you. Nice. I like that. That's really smart.
Oh, his girl.
But how did we get from that to...
I don't know.
That's
I don't
weird.
know.
And
now here we are today where, seriously, you can get self-defense weapons anywhere.
Literally anywhere. Anywhere.
Yeah. Which is good. Not shaming that.
It is good, but just the difference of the world that was then and what is now.
And like, I know we know it, and we talked about it a little bit in like the Zodiac Killer episode.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
That was a fun one.
That was a
if you can say
one.
Fun.
Yeah.
I feel weird saying things are fun.
But I know it's weird. But I'm the same way. But it's just when you're hearing these moments like this, I'm really highlighted and smacked in the face with the difference because it's just so ingrained in us now.
Yeah. I do also want to point out the fact that I haven't even said what happened yet, and you already just know what happened.
Yeah.
It's the reality of the stories that we hear over and over and why we take precautions like we do today. But like, I just wanted to point that out for you guys. Like, I have not told Connie anything about this case.
No, I don't know anything. And yet, internally, I kind of already know. And so do you.
I guarantee if I were to ask you right now what happened, you'd be able to spill out basically everything that happened. So,
how depressing is that?
Yeah, it's sad, but
yeah, back to the case.
Yeah. So Jack offered to go with her, and she said no, she'd be fine. She boarded the train at 12:29 a.m. going back to Bayshore, and that was the last place that police could track her. So Robert, her roommate, thank you. My brain just blanked. Robert, her roommate, woke up at 7 a.m. Eve had not made it home, so he called to report her missing on March 22nd, which that day. Over the next few days, Jack states that there was nothing to go off of. He even called many hospitals looking for a Jane Doe fitting Eve's description, like just looking for her anywhere and everywhere. Well, on March 25th, so we're at day 3 of her being missing, at 8 a.m., a woman saw a barefoot woman lying in her neighbor's lawn. She was wearing blue jeans and a blouse. Shoes and socks were never found. There were rope marks on her wrists, indicating that she was tied up. And they speculated that it was Eve. It was Eve. They speculated that Eve was held captive since March 22nd. She had also been sexually assaulted, seemingly repeated times. She was strangled to death only a few hours before her body was found.
So it wasn't even she escaped. She was placed there.
Yeah, she was dumped. This yard, here's another kicker. This yard was less than 1 block away from where she was living. Really close.
Oh, that sick son of a bitch.
Yeah.
He brought her home. Motherfucker. Okay.
So the detectives started this case very, very optimistic. They're like, we're gonna get this guy. We have to get this guy. And an FBI agent, FBI abstract profilist, put together similar cases from around the country to identify that Eve's killer would most likely be a white male between 19 and 30 who drives a well-kept late model performance car.
Well, I think we can all agree that no one thought it was a woman that did this.
No, absolutely not. No. Jack, her boyfriend, was cleared pretty quickly through DNA testing because they found semen. I can't find any autopsy reports, by the way. I could not find a single autopsy report on her.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I don't know why. Some cases you just can't find certain things for whatever reason.
I'm wondering if it's a request of the family,
That's what I'm wondering too.
which I understand.
I completely understand that. Yeah. Whatever you guys don't want to be on there, I respect. The police were even able to track down the man that had been following Eve home from the train station. That, like, several times that Robert was saying.
Question.
Yes.
Did Eve file a police report about the potential stalking?
No.
Okay, so he wasn't on the radar
No,
before.
not
Okay,
even a little bit.
gotcha.
But they were able to track down who was following her all those times home.
So good police work. Okay.
Good police work. But DNA testing did not match, and he was thrown out as a suspect. Next, they looked into strip clubs and bars that were close to the station and really didn't find anything. They continued to investigate, but all the leads they had were either eliminated as suspects or just whatever, and the case became cold. So, fast forward, big fast forward here. In January of 2019.
Whoa. Yeah, massive. Wait, how many years jump is that?
That is,
You said
39.
83 to 19.
80 to 2019.
1980 to
1980. 39 years.
Damn.
39 years later, Irene Wilkowitz.
Wilkowitz? Is that maybe
Yep,
it?
that's what, I don't know what came out of my mouth. Irene Wilkowitz, Eve's sister, contacted a genetic genealogist and asked her for help to solve her sister's murder.
Oh, yeah, because Ancestry.com and everything else is becoming massive.
Which is something that I didn't even think about, that could help
Wow.
with the case. Yeah. So the genetic genealogist said that she wasn't allowed to get involved in the case because New York had a rule about this technique, and that technique wasn't allowed to be used in that state.
New York is one of those states where the more I learn about their laws, the more questions I have, because I'm sure there's a very good reason, but it inadvertently helps protect scumbags.
Yeah, like, tell me what the reason is that you're not allowing this.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. You're not
would be
hurting
very curious.
anybody.
Yeah, and even still, even if it's a accidental genetic marker like mismatch, you can always like run a test with the person. Like
Exactly.
even though yes, it's a little bit of an additional cost, but how often are you really going to run into that as opposed to situations like this where all of a sudden it's like, no, we have access to a much larger DNA pool than you do through the criminal system, because not everyone on Ancestry.com, most people are not criminals.
Mm-hmm. And even in the criminal system, some people, like, you might not have all of their DNA. Some people, when they get booked, the DNA is not required of them, depending on what they're.
Yeah. So now I'm just is anyone watching from New York? Can you tell us what's going on? Like, not hating and like genuinely curious.
I actually want to understand why things are in place.
I know it's for a reason. I just can't find the reason.
Yeah. So for the state, the Department of Help me.
They are not the Department of Health in this case.
For the state, the Department of Health makes private labs get a permit, and it's a lengthy process that could take months or years, and the department hadn't allowed any labs permission to use this technique at all. At least in 2019. Yeah, right? So by this time, Irene had moved to Rhode Island. She also lost her father. He died at age 90 in 2010. So he died not knowing who killed his daughter. And Irene also had 2 adult children, a son named Evan. which just makes me happy because
Yeah.
clearly that was her first kid.
Yeah.
And a daughter named Dara.
Hmm.
Irene states that when she was younger, she feared whoever killed her sister would try to go after her as well. Makes sense.
There are psychopaths out there that go after family members of their target once they kill their target.
Yep. Or even people that just look similar.
Oh, God, yeah. The amount of times that someone has been killed because they look like someone's ex or mother-in-law or father-in-law or whatever.
Ted Bundy.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Point A.
yeah.
Yeah. So that fear to this day has caused Irene to take certain precautions in her personal life that a lot of us do anyways. One is not jogging with headphones.
Yep.
Yep. And when I'm out, I always have one, and that like earbud. I would never run with headphones ever in my life. There's no way. Being extra vigilant of her surroundings. Sitting with her back to the wall in restaurants, which a lot of you guys might not think about, but think about doing. You got to pay attention to what's around you.
Oh, yeah. Back to a wall. Or if you can't get your back to the wall, you have your back or you're facing the door so you can see who comes in.
Exactly. And then insisting her children call or text whenever they went out. Irene was upset about the news that the state wouldn't allow genetic genealogy to be used in Eve's case. But in 2020, the FBI decided to take another look into Eve's case, and they took particular interest.
Federal, so they can go around the New York. This is why we have federal and state.
Yep. So the FBI wanted to collaborate with Suffolk County, Suffolk, which is the county where...
I would struggle with that too.
Yeah, it was a tongue twister for a minute. So it was the county where she was found, and the FBI was able to use genetic genealogy to solve this case. It took 2 years, but finally in 2022, they found a match. They found Eve's killer, Herbert Rice.
Herbert,
Herbert. Herbert. Herbert Rice. So, he was 29 at the time and was from Long Island. At the time of the murder, he had been living with his mother, who lived close to where Eve was found.
are we shocked? No.
No. So Herbert had 3 minor convictions, supposedly for minor crimes, and they didn't require DNA samples from him at all. Which is kind of why I threw in the not all crimes require DNA samples.
Yep.
Yep. Now this part might give you some mixed feelings because it definitely gave me some mixed feelings. Herbert actually died in 1991 of cancer. So he never went to prison or anything for this.
So he got to live another 11 years.
And had a son. So the break in the case came because Herbert's son was on a public genealogy website. Herbert's son gave permission to the police to exhume his body for DNA samples. And they were able to match the semen that they found, and it was a perfect match. So, after 42 years, the homicide case of Eve was finally solved. But again, mixed feelings.
Very mixed. You know, this is kind of feeling similar to the Kara Robinson situation.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that episode, I highly recommend you check it out.
It's an incredible story.
Incredible story. And I think our episode's pretty good too, but I'm biased. But hey, about 500 other people have watched it. So, but that was the same kind of feeling where the coward took the coward's way out and killed himself. And this guy, while it's good that Herbert is no longer able to hurt anyone, also
He got to live his life as a free man for the rest of his life.
Yeah, to take a phrase from one of our other episodes, the Apple River stabbing, the mother of the 17-year-old that died, when talking about Nikolai, the man who killed her son, she said that her son's life was stolen. And that's how I feel here, where Herbert stole her life, Eve's life,
Yep.
and got to live his own.
Yep. I know.
I even stole the family's life, really.
Yeah.
Like, well, Irene was saying that to this day, she was still taking precautions, and like
his actions still affected her.
To this day, her
Yeah.
father died without
Yep.
Can only hope it was a painful cancer.
Slow.
Yep. Gotta hope for some form of karmic retribution there.
Yeah, just...
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, with this case, you know, from all of our cases, we try to take something out of it. Make sure if you are going places by yourself in kind of sketchy areas, make sure you have some kind of protection with you, whether it be pepper spray, some form of stabby. I mean, even having 911 up on your phone.
Yeah, there's a lot of apps. I don't remember.
There's
off
a
the top
Walk
of my
With
head.
Me app, isn't there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that was big when we were in college, because you hold your thumb on the screen, and if you let go for more than like 1 or 2 seconds, it sends an alert up, and it will send a text to 3 to 5 people of your choosing. Yep. And then from there, if you don't respond within a certain like very small time window, it calls 911 from your phone.
Yep. So there is plenty of stuff like that. I remember it was just starting when we went to college, because at that point it was only it was only like for colleges to use. Yep. But now I'm pretty sure they're public.
Yeah, no, there's
like the one that you just said was a public one.
Yeah, that one was public. There was campus specific ones. Shoot, even at least for my undergrad, public safety, which I mean they couldn't do a whole lot. We love our pub safe folks, but you could call the non-emergency, and there was stations around the campus that had emergency buttons.
The blue poles,
blue poles, so you could get help, but also you could call pub safe ahead of time. And actually, I had a roommate who did this several times when she was studying for some of her econ stuff. And she'd be at South Campus Library, and it was kind of a walk to get back to our dorm on North Campus. So there was a couple times that she would call pub safe, and they would just bring their little go-kart and they'd drive her.
Yeah. There's honestly, I remember back then there was kind of like a shame aspect to it. Like, if you're going to use it, like, why would you use it? But I know it's changed a lot now. But if you're in an area that they're kind of shaming you for it, who cares?
Yeah, here's the thing.
It's your safety. It's your safety. Life, not theirs.
And you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the gamble with life, where at least with things like you never know if you're going to have an accident. So you buy car insurance just in case. Maybe you're going to need it. Maybe you don't. But you know that when you have an accident, you're going to be thankful that you have it, assuming you set your coverage up right. But that's a whole other thing.
Home insurance. I didn't expect one of our pipes to burst and my ceiling to start raining, but you know, it did, and I had home insurance.
And you have a new kitchen out of it.
And I got a new kitchen out of it.
There we go. But see, you don't know, but you're grateful when you have it.
Yep.
And that's like taking precautions. Yep. You don't know if anything's going to happen. And yeah, you know, maybe you'll have nothing happen. You know, maybe nothing will happen with your insurance, and, you know, you're out your premium. But if it does happen, you want something there. So like if you are going to go through a sketchy area and someone has malicious intent for you, they're going to be scared off by another person because most of these people are cowards. They are not going to approach someone who is going to be strong, who is going to fight someone off, who looks like they are not going to go down easy.
Exactly.
So have your pub safety, have your self-defense weapons, have whatever safety method you need to have, and don't be ashamed of it.
No. Yeah, I would always walk around with mace and people made fun of me, and I would run with mace and people would make fun of me, and I was like, someone comes out and jumps me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have it than not.
Oh yeah, I had mace with me all the time.
Yeah.
And I had a quick release on my mace, which probably yours too, where it can pull off. So I would carry my my keys and my mace were on the same keychain, and they were in easy access at all times. And so then I could quickly grab the mace and put the keys between my other fingers.
Yep.
So I'm double weaponed up.
Yep. Yeah. And if you want to, go to some self-defense classes.
Self-defense, anything. And again, you never know if it's going to happen. I was so lucky in college. The only time I had to use my pepper spray was because a squirrel got really aggressive with me. And I was trapped in the alleyway at my old house. And every time I tried to go around it, it would charge at me. The city I went to college in, the squirrels are not afraid of people, okay?
They're not.
They will hassle you.
And they're really fat.
They're really fat and fast and mean. And so I had to pepper spray them. And it didn't go well because it was a windy day. And so I ended up running the other direction. And I was late to class and I had to tell my professor. Thankfully, it was a small class and everyone was chill. But he was like, what's going on? Because I showed up to class and I'm like, because of course it's on the 4th floor. And I'm dying because I'm not a runner. And I was like, I had to pepper spray a squirrel. My professor Jack was like, all right, have a seat. I'm like, thank you.
We're just not going to acknowledge that one. Glad you're here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I believe he and his wife were big like animal rights people.
Well, you can be, and then you meet those squirrels, and some of them are kind of mean.
It's squirrels and geese. You can love animals until you deal with the two of them.
Yeah. Well, on the note of squirrels terrorizing you,
demons, truly.
Demons. Squirrels and demons. You can find us on all of our social media platforms at YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Chaos Chronicles Podcast. That I almost said .com.
Isn't it tempting?
No.
Oh, for the first like 8 or 9 episodes we recorded, always wanted to do .com.
Because I remember editing that out so many times. Why am I doing it now? But yeah, you can find us on all of our social media platforms at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S. Yeah, let us know what you thought of this episode. Have you ever been terrorized by squirrels, I guess? And let us know if you have any recommendations for future episodes. Our list for episodes just keeps getting longer and longer, but if one of you guys recommends us something, maybe we'll bump it up to the top.
Yep. No, I'm excited. Also, someone else, please share your squirrel story because I cannot be the only one traumatized by them. I can't. We need a support group. There's more of us out there.
I've heard it more commonly with raccoons and not squirrels.
Raccoons and geese I've heard, but those city squirrels, they are the ones likely to carry around a pocket knife to stab you. If squirrels had pockets, they would do that.
Yeah. Well, geese. On that happy note, I guess we will see you either on Saturday for our Twilight movie reaction or next week for another something random Wednesday.
Who knows?
We don't know yet.
We don't know. We'll find out then. Yeah. But until then, adios.
Bye.
Fucking hate squirrels.